Hey everybody, hope you're all well. Welcome to our first ever Girls Group Holiday Girl Talk session. I'm so excited to start this. The reason we started this is because one thing I've really been missing is the interactions that we usually have on a Girls Group Holiday. I love all our deeper and meaningful conversations, whether it's talking about politics and putting the world to rights, or whether it's just light-hearted jokes and things. They're always my highlight. You know, just sitting, whether it's late into the night or the early hours of the morning, we've sat in cafes and just got so carried away we forgot what time it is. It's always my favorite. So I'm really excited to be bringing this now online because it's been a massive void for me during lockdown. And I'm even more excited because I've got some special guests online with me. So you guys have already met our Girls Group Holiday team. There's Aisha, Husna and Zaynah. They're on the call as well. And we've got a special treat for you today because we've got a very special guest in with us today. You're going to get to meet her shortly. We met a year ago, I think it was just over a year ago, during the Pembrokeshire glamping weekend, and I really enjoyed meeting with her, interacting with her. I think we had some really good conversations around the campfire. We ate s'mores. If you don't know, it's 2 digestive biscuits of chocolate with marshmallows in the middle, and then heated up so the marshmallows melt. It's delicious. And it's quite funny actually, because when I had the idea for this, I remember thinking I need a special guest and I couldn't think of who. And I remember then thinking I'm going to sleep on it, and then in the morning maybe I'll have an answer. And it's so weird because she knows, because I think when she messaged me, I actually called her a miracle, because what happened was I remember sleeping on it, and then in the morning I woke up and I had a follow on Instagram and it was this girl. And I remember thinking, oh my God, this is like a sign. So I think I replied back with, you're a miracle, in like big letters. So I'm so excited for you to meet her. Her name's Zaynah. I'm going to introduce you to her now. Zaynah, do you want to give us a quick hello and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi guys, thanks Sophia for that really kind, lovely introduction. I'm so happy to be on this call with you guys. I feel exactly the same way during lockdown. It's been really difficult not interacting with people the same way, having those deep discussions. But when you contacted me about this topic, I was really excited and I literally took the chance and opportunity to talk about it online with you guys. In person would have been better, but we can't help that. But yes, my name's Zaynah. I have an Instagram account called zaynahkhan.uk. Sounds like a website, but it's not. It's just the name of my page. And basically on that Instagram page, I just choose to post things which I like to brand as real talk. So talking about real life, real topics, real feelings and thoughts. It tends to be things that people don't really see a lot of online, or they don't feel comfortable discussing normally. But my main intention for that page was to post things so that people can read my posts, watch my videos, and feel like they can resonate with them and not feel so weird or alone. And so the response has been really good. But again, the topic that you came to me with, asking if I wanted to be a part of discussing, was right up my street. And I'm just so excited to be here with you girls and finally meet these girls and just get into this conversation.
Great, thank you for sharing, Zaynah. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to be putting your Instagram page name at the bottom so people can check you out. I was really impressed with what you're doing. I think it's so needed. So keep it up. I really love following you and your posts. So during these sessions, we want to discuss different topical issues that affect women, and mainly women from Asian backgrounds or like ethnic cultures like ourselves, because sometimes the things that affect us are slightly different to what might be affecting women, you know, just other women, and more mainstream, I would say, issues. So it's always going to be different topical issues. And today we've got quite a mammoth topic. Like for me, this is quite big. So we're going to be talking about beauty standards within the Asian culture. And more specifically today, we're going to be talking about skin colour and colorism. Now, I'm sure everyone on this call has had some kind of it's come up in their life at some time, because I think as Asian women, I feel like it affects every single one of us, and I'm yet to meet someone who it hasn't really affected in any way. So I'm really excited to hear everyone's opinions, for you guys to share your thoughts, and for us to really just have a little bit of a discussion and conversation around the whole topic, because it's something that's come up quite a lot recently. I think with some of the Black Lives Matter protests coming that were recently taking place, it's a topic that I think it started with the Black Lives Matter when a lot of the Bollywood stars were posting things, but then at the same time they were saying that they were they were sponsoring or on the adverts of some of the creams like Fair and Lovely. So yeah, so let's get started. I'm going to start, and then what we're going to do is we're going to hand it over to Zaynah for her thoughts, any experiences she's been through, and then we're going to hand it over to Husna, Aisha and Sana, and then we're all going to have a bit of a discussion. So I hope that sounds good, and let's get started. So I'm going to go first. So for me, I was actually thinking today, when did skin colour become a thing for me? When did I first think about it? And I couldn't actually pinpoint a moment. So I remember that it was something that was always there from the beginning, which is quite a weird thing if you think about it, because as a child, we shouldn't have to think about things like skin colour discrimination. But I remember seeing, you know, just old photographs, and I saw these photographs when I was younger. Say like my mum would go to the Christmas concert and she'd take a photograph of me, I don't know, as an angel or something, and then I can remember me being like the really dark one with like the big hair, and I can just remember me feeling like, oh my god, like look at the state of me. What do I look like compared to like everyone else in the class? And then it got me thinking, like, how at such a young age did I even have the thought that because my skin was darker than everyone else's, I was something less than? So it really just like made me think. And then I thought that these kind of things are really embedded into our culture. So there's no like, I can't even think of a beginning or an end, because it's so ingrained. I don't know when it started. I don't, maybe it's got something to do with, I'm not sure if it has, but you know, like when the British Empire went over to India, and maybe it was seen as superiority to be lighter skinned or something. I don't know if that could be one reason, or maybe it's even earlier than that. So for me, it was just quite a powerful realization that it's something that's just been there for so long. Like it's been there from the beginning. I can't remember a time when it wasn't there. Like more recently, like growing up, I remember instances where people would say things or make comments, not to me directly, but about other people. So I was trying to think like which comments do I remember over the times, and I think I remember a couple of times when people have said like such and such, meaning a particular girl or even a particular boy is really pretty, or oh, he's so good looking, but he's just a bit dark. And then when you think like, I didn't know that was a thing that makes someone less attractive. So for me, that was quite shocking when I would hear these kind of comments. Or like I remember once actually seeing like a picture of a bride, and someone said, oh, she's so pretty, but she's just too dark. And then I just thought like, I don't know, like how can someone say these things? But it's there, like it's definitely there. I remember at uni once someone said, like we were having a conversation about something, and someone mentioned that at a wedding, the groom should always be darker than the bride. And that for me was a bit like, what the hell? if that's the case, then I think I've married wrong, because but I'm darker than my husband, I would say. So I'm sorry to that person who said that, but I've gone against the rules. So yeah, these kind of comments, they might sound like they're nothing, but they are quite hurtful, and for me, it just makes no sense. You guys might have read that recently there's a dating website called Shadi.com. So one of their filters was actually skin color. So you can pick a preference. So whether it's fair, like, I don't actually know what the criterias are, but I don't know if it's like moderately fair or extremely fair. And it's been like that for over 20 years. That's been the criteria. And only recently, in June they removed that filter. So they don't have a skin color filter anymore. So that was quite a big thing for them to do. Now, I don't know if any of the other matchmaking sites, I don't know if they have these kind of criterias. But that, I think, sends out a clear message that it's not right. And then I also recently started watching, well, yesterday I started to watch, I don't know if anyone watches it, I can't remember the name, but it's on Netflix. It's a program about a matchmaker in India. It's really funny. So we started to watch that yesterday, and like in there, I was actually counting the times that in the first episode, I was counting the times that the matchmaker used skin color as a preference. So when she would meet the woman, she would say, oh, like she wants a fair skinned guy, or when she would meet the man, the potential. So it was still a criteria. So I don't know if this will ever go. For me personally, I think it's so ingrained that I'm not sure where we are going with this or whether it will stop. So I don't want to be a pessimistic person, but for me, I'm not sure. I feel like it's too deep rooted. Zaynah, I'm going to come to you now. Do you want to share your thoughts, some of your feelings around skin color?
Sure. So thanks for sharing your experiences with it, because as you were saying, I was literally just nodding away, because I feel like I can resonate with that 100%. I feel like so many girls will, especially from like South Asian communities like Pakistani, Indian, Bangladesh. I feel like it is very generational. It's very sort of deep rooted, and it goes back so many generations. It's like you said, it's really hard to say when it started, but we're feeling the effects now. And I feel like when you were talking about the Black Lives Matter movement, which was very recent, not even, I think just over a month ago, it all first started. And it was very weird, because I did feel like I saw many people come forward, but then those same people definitely exhibit colorism within their own communities, and I felt like a lot of it was very hypocritical, and it didn't feel very good. And when you think about it, I think you mentioned the Fair and Lovely cream as well. I mean, I've seen the Fair and Lovely cream. I know people that have literally gone out and brought it, not because they want to look fairer for themselves, but because they think that they have to. And they think that they will look prettier, they'll look more desirable, more beautiful, and that also so that people can stop giving them comments about it as well. And I know people firsthand who have felt like their skin color is just not right, and it's not okay, and it's crazy. It's just bizarre that people can make you feel that way. And it's really sad, because it's like as soon as they're born, it's like they're given those comments, and so it gets embedded within them that is a negative belief that they have about themselves, and it literally just gets passed down. And I think even when you were talking about the matchmaking websites, I think especially with our generation at the moment, I think if you were to take away the impact that other generations before them have sort of put on us, a lot of people would actually sit back and say, you know what, I don't mind. I'm more bothered about the personality or about the vibe that I have with that person. But because they're surrounded by people that think differently, it makes them think different too. And I think that that's really, really interesting. And also what you were saying about weddings as well, the amount of times I've honestly heard people say, oh, you know, she could have done her makeup a bit differently. She could have evened out her skin tone a bit or made herself look lighter. And especially, I feel like I can talk about this because I'm Pakistani. No one have a go at me. But I feel like, you know, when you do see some Pakistani brides, they're not recognizable because you know that they've put on so much foundation that's a different color to their skin. And that makes me feel sad because I feel like that woman felt like she had to do that. Because if she rocks up with a foundation that matches her own skin, she's not going to be accepted or she's going to be spoken about. And the reality of the situation is she probably would by those people that have that backwards sort of mindset. I don't even want to say backwards actually, because it's not really just a certain section of people. It runs really deep in so many cultures. And an example that I've had, which I guess isn't so deep, but when it comes to myself, I love going on holiday, as you know, hence why I got in contact with you. And the amount of times people have said to me, oh, don't come back too dark, or don't come back black. They've actually said those words, like I'm being straight up, they've said that. And I've looked at them like, what is so wrong with coming back dark? And so what if I came back with a really healthy tan, as long as I'm not sunburned and my skin's not peeling off, what's wrong with that? And people, yeah, I mean, even in this community, people do make it very clear that, you know, oh, if you're darker, maybe people won't want to marry you as much. And it's so crazy for me to admit that people say that, because it's so wrong. And so that's kind of been my experience. But the thing is, I am fair, and I have felt like people have said, oh, you're pretty because you're fair. And it's like, I get very, very angry about that, because, you know, my skin color changes all the time, because I do go on holidays and I do come back and the tan comes and it goes. But I also know so many people of so many different colors, and I genuinely see who they are firstly as a person, aside from what they look like. But then when I see what they look like and I see their skin, I see them as beautiful anyway. And so it just makes me really sad that almost sense of racism and colorism really exists when you're talking about other cultures, but definitely within your own culture as well. And it makes me so angry. You can probably tell I get very annoyed. But yeah, that's the kind of experiences that I've had, and with people that have been close to me.
Thank you, Zaynah. That does, like, I could tell you're passionate about it, but that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. And I can really relate to, you know, how you've mentioned about going on holidays. I've come back from so many places. I've walked through the door at home and my mum has been like, oh God, look at you, like you've tanned. So like it's even, or like not even tan, you've gone dark. So it's not, it starts, I would say, in the home sometimes as well. And I don't think people say it in a malicious way, but I think it's something that, I don't know, in Asian cultures, it's so like frowned upon to be dark, or even just like to have tanned a bit. So yeah, it's a funny one, but it needs changing. Husna, we're going to come on to you now. Really glad you're here. What are your thoughts?
I just want to say hi to everyone, first of all. Hope you're enjoying this lovely sunny day. So honestly, I definitely agree with what you said, and Zaynah, I definitely agree that it's not just South Asian cultures, it's many cultures, but we can share our experiences because we are part of the South Asian culture, and we have experienced this from, whether it's, you know, your friend, your next door neighbor, people from back home, whether it's from your mother, your father, it's any age has really experienced colorism as a whole within our culture. And for me, in my experience, I think it's been a bit subtle, and I've had kind of subtle colorism comments, or come to think about it, maybe it's subtle because it's so normal for me. And, you know, it's just because we haven't had these outward conversations and we haven't addressed it directly and upfront with our families to say, you know, this is an issue. We don't like X, Y, and Z comment. it's always just kind of brushed under the rug, and it's never really been addressed. And I think even with the Black Lives Matter movement and everything that is going on, I think this is a prime time, and it should have been before, and it should continue to. We should continue to have these awkward conversations with our families about colorism. And it is awkward because it's not really something that you want to approach with your family, especially if you're much younger and you don't feel as though you have the authority to actually open up to them and say, hey, some of these comments aren't exactly comfortable, or it's not exactly how you should be talking about different people of different colors. But I think having these open and awkward conversations is the first step to addressing it, because once we address it, the elephant is in the room, it's out in the open. They may, you never know, someone might think twice about that comment that they've said if you've already addressed it. And it's honestly just a learning curve, and getting over that steps and kind of putting it out in the open and making everyone feel a bit uncomfortable and awkward, because at first it's going to be uncomfortable and awkward. We're not just going to address it and it's, that's it, colorism, who's that? South Asian community, what? There's no colorism. No, it's always going to constantly be something that we are going to be fighting for. Well, fighting against, I should say. I guess in my experience in particular, there's always kind of, I know we've always mentioned weddings and kind of doing the makeup. It's always the lighter foundation. You go to Asian makeup artists, some, not all, and they want the lightest foundation, or you want to look all nice and fair with what they consider to be, for it to show in pictures, for you to obviously, like you said, you look whiter compared to your husband who's supposedly meant to be darker, etc. But in my experience, I have used Fair and Lovely before. When I'm going to my local supermarket, my local South Asian supermarket, you just pick it up. People have mentioned it so many times in my family when I was much younger, and I just thought, hey, what's this everyone's talking about? I might as well just pick it up. I might as well just use it. And to me, it wasn't as though I wanted to seem lighter, because when I was younger, I was considered fair or lighter skinned than other people or other friends or other cousins, etc. But to me, it was just like, oh, everyone else is using it. Why can't I? Everyone else is using it. It smelled lovely. I'm going to admit that. It smelled nice. So I was just like, yeah, let me slather it on. But I didn't actually know what the reason was behind it. I was like, everyone else is using it, so I kind of want to fit into that. I also want to see what it's all about, so I want to use it too. And I guess kind of having that ingrained to think, oh, let me just pick it up because it's just standard. It was pretty cheap anyway too, and it's not something that really, it's not exactly, sorry, it was pretty cheap anyway, and it's something that you can access everywhere. So I guess that's my experience with kind of the Fair and Lovely side of it, and having all different kinds of cream, etc. But I think because we don't have these outward conversations within our families, amongst our friends, etc., I know for people that I know, we give someone a nickname by the color of the skin. So I've got aunties who we call gory, because it's just white, and because they were white and they were fair, that's their name. I don't even know their real name, if I'm honest, but we just call them that, and we call them as a gory color or something like that, or a gory boy or something like that in Gujarati anyway. But because it's just standard, that's how it is. And because it is quite outward, but it's also subtle at the same time, because children, especially in this generation, might not know growing up what it actually means. They might just think it's their name. They might not actually know that it was associated with someone because they were white, etc. But living in the UK especially, I guess there's a bit of a clash in particular for me, because the beauty standard in the UK is kind of a tan skin, kind of looking glowing, kind of looking highlighted, etc. And to me, that's perfect, because that's what I love in particular. But then when you have the culture clash of looking, fairer and whiter, etc., it's how do you manage, or should you manage the culture clash and what your environmental standards are? So that's my experience. I guess it really is just a journey, and I know I can't emphasize enough how important it is to have these awkward conversations, because I mean I've had it, and I know friends who've had it, and although it hasn't changed overnight, it's definitely got people to talk about it, like conversations that we're having now, and you know it's got people thinking about it. So yeah.
Thank you, Husna. I completely agree. They are awkward conversations, but they do need to be had. And also, thank you for sharing your experience on actually using the cream, and also about how it was just so normal, how it was such a normalized thing to do. It's so interesting that you say that. Aisha, let's come to you now. Great to have you here as well.
Everyone. Just sort of following on, I would say my experience sort of started when, from a young age as well, like Sophia said. I think like from primary school, I remember I was quite fair, and a lot of people, mainly South Asian people, would think that I was like mixed race and think that my mum was like fair, like a white lady. And sometimes I think from then I'd be like, I'd sort of go along with it, because it was always seen that, like, you know, white is more superior and white is the way to go, and you know, it's beauty and this and that. So yeah, and it actually, like, thinking back, it's quite scary to think that, you know, from such a young age, you know, you have that sort of embedded in your like thoughts and things like that. And I think sort of growing up as well, especially in the UK and in our society, I think I always try to whitewash myself. I'd sort of shy away from my culture. I'd, you know, try and like the way that I pronounce my English, I wouldn't sort of have an accent, and I would, you know, try and, I don't know, sort of hang around with people that probably, you know, aren't the same colour as me and things like that, because it was like, it was always a thing of trying to fit in and trying to find out where you sort of belong. And I feel like, you know, skin colour does have a part to play in that as well. I think now, though, sort of growing up, I do understand the importance of my culture. I'm more proud of that, and my skin colour and my roots and everything, in that sense. And I think, obviously we've touched up on like how it's very prominent in South Asian community, but also like speaking to one of my friends a couple of years ago, who's Filipino, it's actually, you know, a big thing there as well, and they also have these sort of products to sort of lighten your skin and things like that. So I mean, I don't think I've ever sort of had like negative comments in a sense of you know, you're too dark, you're this, you're that. It's more so being like, you know, you're light. So actually so, you know, I've kind of used that to my advantage in a sense. And I think actually, you know what, that's really wrong. And sort of growing up and having different experiences with different people and understanding who I am and my identity has helped me to sort of, you know, grow out of that mindset and, you know, understand that whatever color, whatever background you are, you know, we're all the same, we're all equal, and we all are beautiful in our own way, in a sense. So yeah, that's my take on it.
There was so much of what you were saying that I could relate to about, especially, you know, about whitewashing your culture and yourself, and just trying to avoid certain things about yourself. I think it's hard at times for us when we grow up in the UK, because we do have kind of a clash of cultures. Zaynah, I'm going to come to you next. So happy to have you here as well with us.
Skin colour is something that's so natural, and people are just made to feel less about it. And it's just really strange why. And thinking about like the skin whitening creams and things like that, I feel like it's a massive industry, and these companies are just capitalizing on these insecurities of these women. And even like celebrities, actors, actresses, big names are always endorsing these companies as well. So people would look at these adverts and think, okay, if Shah Rukh Khan, Mahira Khan, you know, Priyanka Chopra, if they can be fair-skinned, maybe I can look like that, maybe I can be successful like them as well, which is just so wrong when they see these adverts. And the adverts are so ridiculous when you actually look at the adverts, like the way, like this girl, and like she's looked as so dull, they made the camera even more dull, and then someone hands her this cream and then she becomes so beautiful, and you know, she has all like this glow. It's just, that's not even how, the creams don't even work like that anyway. And it's just ridiculous how these adverts are just pushed onto like young women and even men as well. At such a young age, they're just exposed to these. Moving on from what can be like done from this, it's important that the change starts from within yourself. So sometimes you might have thoughts, I've even had thoughts myself that, oh, maybe I am a bit darker. I remember when I was younger, I used to use like a lighter foundation, thinking it would make me look more desirable. But it's just ridiculous that that's even a thing that I would have to do that. So looking at what can be done from this as well, it's obviously, it's not something that would just change overnight. It is like a massive thing, and I don't think it's something that maybe could ever change, but it's important that you start the change within yourself. And even just like raising awareness. If you hear someone like talking about, oh, so and so is this color, or so and so is this color, just speak out about it and just share what your thoughts are and your opinions, because if you do raise awareness of this and start from it, it might change someone else's mindset as well, and slowly that change could make a difference.
So Zaynah, I just wanted to say that I really agreed with your points and liked what you were saying there about how the change does start within yourself, and about how important it is for us to take responsibility to know when we're exhibiting types of colorism when we don't even realize. So when we might be subconsciously just having those thoughts, whether it's about ourselves or other people, and trying to just be aware of it and make changes, I think that's really important to, like you said, make the world a better place, because it always starts within yourself, and then you can hopefully spread that goodness as well. And another point I remembered as you girls were talking about, how when I used to go on holiday, it got so deep that I didn't want to get tan to look dark, or like how people said, for example, Zaynah, you mentioned the word like gali, like how people would just say don't come back too dark. I literally used to walk around with an umbrella, and I used to like cover myself completely, and just it would take away the enjoyment from the holiday, because you go abroad to feel that warmth and to just enjoy the sunshine, and it just used to change my experience of holidays. Whereas now the type of like experience that I have is I try to get as tanned as possible, and I honestly think it's kind of a bit of a rebellious nature in me now. Like I want to come back tanned, I want to be like, I'm a different color now, you know. So I think that definitely is something that I've become more aware of, and I try to I guess empower the people around me that I know struggle with their skin color as well, and I try to let them see that, you know, just because you're a little bit darker, you're actually seen as a beautiful, desirable color to, like we said, people in this country. I think Husna, you touched upon that, about how these days a lot of people feel like tanned is good. You know, other people are going to tan beds and they're putting fake tan on themselves to try and get themselves to look maybe how you look, or how I look, how someone else looks, of our culture. And I think that's where, when I kind of was like, wow, there's really a battle going on here. There's really a struggle between, let's say, back home and ancestral kind of generational preferences, and where we're actually in the UK. UK and America, like very, very similar with this type of thing. So I thought that was really interesting as well. Also, I remembered how on Snapchat, I actually remember when they came out with the first set of filters. It was ages ago now, but the first one was you could make everything lighter. And I literally know so many people, and even myself, like, I'm admitting it too, when it first came out, I used to swipe and like, oh my gosh, I look better, lighter, I'm gonna post this. And it's just the fact that we don't even realize we're doing it. It's like, it's just ingrained in us that swipe on your phone, you'll look a little bit lighter, and you can post that and you'll look better for it. And so I think that, especially for girls, I really can't comment on guys, but I'm sure they have that going on as well, that it's literally just, it feels so normal to do that. And it's like, we have to be aware that we're doing it, and we have to try and stop ourselves, and try and take ownership of who we are, what we actually look like. It's much easier said than done, but yeah, I think things do need to change. And also how I think, Husna, I think you mentioned, I wanted to actually ask you a question, if that's okay. I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned that you used Fair and Lovely, but you didn't know what the purpose was, or what the ingredients were, and the, I guess, marketing side behind it. So I wanted to ask you, how did you find out what it actually was, and how did you feel once you found out, and did that change sort of what you were doing? So I'd love to ask you that.
Zaynah, thank you for your question. Like you mentioned, you know, when I started using it, I didn't know any of its kind of purpose, etc. I just really liked the smell, which was something just really awkward, and you know, everyone else was using it. But when I started to identify what it was used for, I think for me personally, because I was already considered to be fair or whatever it was, I was just like, well, I don't need this anymore. You know, people are already telling me, because I didn't think it had for me, I didn't think it actually played a part in how I was changed your skin tone. As soon as you put it on, it just gives a white cast and it makes you look ashy and grey. And because, you know, there's influences of like social media and kind of beauty, and like we both mentioned, kind of the culture clash of being from the UK and kind of having that tan desirable look, which is what people are aspiring to be. I didn't like that kind of look of being white and ashy, because the environment around me told me that, you know, people that I knew were going to tan beds, etc., and they were getting the tan. So I think subtly having that environment around me has kind of allowed me to kind of embrace my own skin and embrace the way that I've looked. I guess when I was using the product, because it was so normal and it was so standard and everyone else was using it, and you know, you want to join that gang, you want to fit into whatever it is, it was just very easily accessible. But then I think once now I'm starting to actually sit down and kind of understand why I used it, what was the meaning of it, why everyone else was using it around me. I think it is quite generational, like you say, because all of the young kind of girls and cousins are using it, and we don't really know what it is. It's just our parents are just like, oh yeah, I've used it before, so here, you can use it too. But essentially, I think what kind of was the turning point in my mind is actually having that clash of, you know, the UK culture of wanting to be considered tan, and you know, looking on Instagram and having a look at, or YouTube or like Snapchat or wherever, and having a look at that influencer who's, you know, on Saturday going to the tan bed, coming out looking 5 shades darker in the winter, etc. And then me putting something ashy on, not looking great, not looking something that is, I guess that's kind of the reason why I've identified it as something that I thought, no, I wouldn't stay away from this, because I wanted to fit more in the environmental aspect than the actual cultural aspect. But essentially, the reason why I kind of decided to discard of that product is because there was definitely that culture clash of, you know, living in an environment where, and you know, it's starting to become a norm to be considered tan and people to go to sunbeds, etc., and start getting a tan like that. But where it's the cultural clash, where from the South Asian community especially, where it's just like lighter skin that looks great, you know, it's what we're seeing in with Bollywood actresses do, with people back home that are trying to get these products and actually becoming a bit more fairer. So that's definitely one of the reasons why I kind of pushed that away, because I tried to find a way to fit into both of those and to kind of organize my mind in actually what is my direction and what kind of way do I want to go.
Thank you for sharing that, Husna. I feel like some really important points have been raised. I just wanted to quickly touch upon a few things that have been mentioned as well. So Sana and Zaynah, you both talked about, like Sana bravely talked about how she had these subconscious thoughts as well. Now, I think most people have these subconscious thoughts because I didn't admit it, but even I would have these kind of subconscious thoughts. Even I remember like, I remember going into MAC and getting my makeup done actually, and I don't know why, with some MAC foundations, they've got an orange tint and they always make you look so, I don't know, like an Oompa Loompa. So I remember when I used to get mine done, and I remember actually saying to the lady, like, I don't want orange tint because it makes me look really tanned and orange, and I really didn't like that. But sometimes I think it's also because, you know, with Asian skin, like I'm quite envious sometimes of, you know, like dark, like black skin, because sometimes it's just so smooth that it's got like one color. And sometimes with our Asian skin, like mine, for example, like I've got like a different color under my eyes and different patches. So sometimes it's a bit hard to actually get a foundation where maybe we go with like a lighter shade because it's a bit lighter here, and then we just try to even it all out. So it is, yeah, it's quite hard to embrace your skin at times. Like it's something I've struggled with. And then the other point I really wanted to add on to is what Aisha mentioned about different cultures. So she mentioned her Filipino friend, I think it was Filipino. And I completely agree. Like I, for a long time, thought it was just an Asian, like a South Asian problem. So I was very shocked actually when, like in 2013, I went to Geneva for a while, and I assisted at the United Nations on one of the committees. So it was called the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, and different countries have to present some of their like different racism that's going on in their country, and different countries get selected each session when this committee's in, when it's time for the committee, and they have to report back what kind of racism is going on in the country. And that time when I was there, Jamaica was one of the countries that was reporting back, and their main issue was actually skin color. So for me, that was shocking because I always associate it with Asian culture. So what they were saying in Jamaica was that skin color was like also a sliding scale of social class. So the lighter you are was the more like higher, in a higher social class you were. And then the darker you were in a lower social class. So for example, if there was like the high-end restaurants or the high-end parts of say like the city, they would have more whiter people or fair-skinned people, or you know, like just fairer skinned black people, whereas, and they would be in the better jobs, they would have you know, they would be higher classed in society compared to the darker skinned people. So that was something really interesting for me. And then also while we were there was a guy who was reporting who was he was like the expert from Brazil, and then he actually said that in Brazil this was a big problem as well, and they had you know, like job interviews would actually specify what color you need to be. So on a job interview it would say like we're looking for a fairer skinned person, or like no dark skinned people. So it would actually specify. So I was quite shocked to discover that it's not just in our communities, it's happening in it's prevalent in a lot of communities all over the world. Like I know it's prevalent in you know, like Korea and China and even Thailand. I think they use a lot of skin lightening there. So we know it's in Jamaica. I think it's also in a lot of African countries as well, because I have read reports about like skin bleaching in, for example, Nigeria. So it's not just within our cultures. So I just wanted to yeah, make that point about social class as well, because for me that was really interesting.
Husna, thank you for sharing your experience on like skin lightening. But touching back to that with the tanning and the skin lightening, I think it's just important to highlight the difference between them. I feel like skin lightening women, people that do that, they often feel like they don't have a choice, and it's something that they feel like they have to do. Whereas with the tanning, it's almost like a white privilege, so they have the option to change their skin color, and it's not because they have to, it's just aesthetically because they think they'll look better. So it's just like a privilege that they have, if that makes sense.
Yes, I just wanted to add on from what you were saying, Sana, about you mentioned the term white privilege and about how that it's kind of similar to when we're talking about colorism, because I actually think that when I was reading up about colorism, you know, I was watching talks on it and finding examples of it and just thinking about it in general. I actually think there's a fine line between colorism and racism, because it is technically racism, but within your own sort of sect, within your own community and where you come from. And I think that it's really important to note that when we're speaking about how it's clearly racism when people say, you know, that they're not going to let someone get a certain job because they're a bit darker or because they're a different skin color, or if there's something culturally sort of different to them. I think that it's when we notice those things sort of happening in our own homes, it's literally such a fine line between racism as well. And I just feel like if someone is experiencing or exhibiting colorism within their own home, within their own community, their own circle of people, I just feel like if they're doing it within themselves, like it's pretty obvious that they're going to do it to others as well. And so I really started thinking about colorism and within my own community when the whole Black Lives Matter movement happened, because I felt like it was so talked about, obviously the black community, and it needed to be, it still does need to be, it's a massive topic, but it's like what Sophia was saying, I think earlier in the conversation, that it does start at home. And it's like if you're sort of giving into these practices, these terms, this way of thinking, this mindset, it's almost like we stand no chance to get rid of that mindset when we go outside of the home. And I just think that connection is so powerful. I don't think people think about it a lot. People are very quick to jump into protests and hold signs up and say Black Lives Matter, and of course they do. Like, we're not talking about that right now though, but within this conversation. But it's very crazy to me how people can go home and then they don't necessarily start making those changes where they can within their own families, communities and friends as well. Because I definitely feel like they literally go hand in hand with each other. I don't know if you guys feel the same.
You've actually just reminded me of a point of like when you were saying about people thinking negatively about themselves and their own skin color, and it just brought me to the point of self-hatred, because then I think a lot of us grow up with this sense of self-hatred because we feel so perhaps ugly in our own skin tone, in our own skin color, that then we do start to hate on ourselves and other people that like we would see them as ugly as well. And it reminded me actually of a quote that I came across, and I think I sent it to you, Zaynah, actually, because when I was reading this book, this quote really like stuck out for me. And yeah, and I feel like it's very, I don't know, for me, I feel like there's this sense of this within our communities. So it's a quote by Toni Morrison, and it's from the book called The Bluest Eye, I think it's called, that I read a couple of weeks ago. And the quote is, I'm just reading it from my phone, so I've just put it up now. The quote is, "You looked at them and wondered why they were so ugly. You looked closely and you could not find the source. Then you realized that it came from conviction, their conviction." So when I read that, I was just like, whoa, like that's so true. So I don't know if it's true for you guys, but for me, like I grew up most of my life feeling like I was ugly. Not just because of the skin color, I would say that was part of it. Part of it was just being like different. So I think that this is an issue within, I do think it's an issue within Asian communities. Toni Morrison was talking about the issue within Black communities, but I still think it is quite prevalent within our own communities, because we're always kind of, I don't know, from a young age, we're always taught that we're different. To be beautiful, we need to be light skinned, we need to look a certain way, we need like certain hair. So yeah, for me, that quote really resonated.
I just wanted to add something, and you were talking about quotes, and there was also another quote that came to my mind when I was doing some research about this. And the actress and activist Lupita Nyong'o, she mentioned that colorism is the daughter of racism, and I think that hit me very hard because, like you said, Zaynah, there's a very fine line, and I think when we have these discussions, it's regardless of what we are discussing, we are going to cross that fine line into the colorism within not only our communities, but also racism that's also within our communities. So, you know, like everything that's going on in the world, and speaking about Black Lives Matters, and, you know, a lot of protests that are going on, a lot of petitions that are going on, I think what I'm getting from this conversation is what's definitely helping me is that what Sana was also talking about is addressing it within yourself. Because I know also, Zaynah, you mentioned, you know, there was the Snapchat filters and, you know, it was the lighter skin filters. For me, it's the same. And, you know, just this morning flicking through it and thinking, oh, which one looks good on me? I mean, having that beauty standard of what you compare to, you know, having the smaller features, the Eurocentric feature, kind of having that lighter skin, it's definitely something that plays a very big part in how we see ourselves. So I think that was just kind of my final point, that the quote, colorism is the daughter of racism, is for me essentially something that is such a big impact in how we see ourselves, not only within communities, but how other people see themselves within communities too.
Thank you, Husna, for saying that as well, because I just wanted to follow on from that, from what you were saying about colorism being the daughter of racism. That's literally exactly what I started to realize as well, sometimes firsthand, because I can tell from this conversation that you girls have had experiences too, and we're sort of immersed in it and we don't even realize. And a point I kind of wanted to make before we sort of round up was that I just think that at this time it's really important for people to have conversations like we're having. And this quote that I read recently, which literally hit me so hard, was that we need to learn to put down the microscope and pick up the mirror. And it's literally look at ourselves first. And you know how we're all admitting about the Snapchat filters, the cream, the foundation, and I'm sure there's so many other things that we've subconsciously done and we didn't realize what we were doing. It's so important to admit it to ourselves, admit it to our families and friends, and get the conversation going, because that's the only way that we're going to instill change within ourselves and the people that we love around us, and hopefully spread that out to communities and eventually the world as well. I know I'm going all like super speech on you guys, but I wanted to literally mention how it has created changes in my close circle as well. And I do feel like, although especially South Asian cultures, because we're South Asian, we're talking about that, well, we have experience, let's say, although it is generational, it can be broken and changes can be made, and it's hard and it's uncomfortable, and people will just think that we're being too passionate, too aggressive even. But I think that it really needs to be done, because there are people that are fair and are made to feel like they're lucky for being fair, and then there are people that are slightly darker and they literally are made to feel like they've done something wrong, or that they're doing something wrong, or they're not doing enough. And just that whole idea about the holidays for me was a big one, because I felt like, why should one person be made to feel like they should have less of an experience when they're out and about on holiday, just because they're darker, because they don't want to come back even darker. So yeah, I just wanted to add that in.
What I just wanted to say to round off was, is it the fact that, you know, we look better with these Snapchat filters, and or, you know, when we look fairer and sort of more Eurocentric, or is it the fact that society has conditioned us to make us feel like we look better. And I think that's something that we probably all need to ponder on, and maybe sort of try and find comfort within ourselves as well.
Wow, I feel like this has just been a massive conversation, a massive, much needed conversation, and it's such a huge topic, and we could talk about this all day. I've really enjoyed it, and I've really got so much from you guys as well. I've loved hearing about your own experiences, and also I've loved just thinking about what changes I'm going to be consciously trying to make, because I think that's an important step. And although it's hard to admit it, I think I'm guilty of it. You're all nodding along, because I was going to say we're all guilty of it, but I didn't want to bundle you all together with me. But everyone's nodding along. So yeah, so I'm guilty of it, you're guilty of it. So I think people from wider society must be guilty of it too. And the only thing we can now do is take responsibility and ownership for our own actions. And whether that's by being more conscious about some of our thoughts, not judging people on their skin color, even things like when we buy a foundation, not going for a few shades lighter, just not thinking badly. I'm not saying we do, but just not thinking badly just because something's darker. And also to spread the word with other people, so within our own friendship circles, to keep the conversation alive, make sure more people are thinking about this, and it's not something that's just going to come and go, because we do need to see a change now. Like, you know, sometimes people say we're in the 21st century and this is still happening. That's how I feel about this. There's a lot of things I feel like that about, so many, and this is one of them. So yeah, so thank you guys for joining. It's been really good. I've loved hearing from you, and I'm looking forward to the next episode of this. And what I want to say to anyone who's listening is that if you have any topics or things that you think would be interesting for us to discuss, then do get in touch and let us know, because we'd really like to discuss those topics. And they're probably topics that we're already thinking about and that do need discussing, because I think what we don't realize is I think we think that some of these thoughts that we have are just singular and independent to us. But I think what we don't realize is that these thoughts and these things are affecting many women. For example, this conversation has proved that this is a topic that touches many people, and women and men, I would say. Although we don't have any men on the talk today, I do think men are affected by this as well. So yeah, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you on the next one. Bye.